All right, man. Welcome back to Make Your Mark NBA channel. It's your boy Mark here again. So I've had a discussion about this topic a few times in regards to where Giannis Antetokounmpo ranks all time in the hierarchy of all-time great power forwards. And I've thrown a lot of people off when I claim that, in my opinion, I think that he deserves to be recognized as the second greatest power forward ever. Now, some might say that's too early. I can definitely understand that. He may not have the longevity of some other all-time greats, but he certainly has accomplished more than them. Maybe not that much more, but he has surpassed them all time in accomplishments. If you combine what he's done in the regular season and also in the postseason thus far, and what his overall impact is on his team. All right, so off top, we know Tim Duncan is number one. Based on what he was able to accomplish in his career, he's definitely number one. And the other candidates for number two all time, most people bring up names like Karl Malone, Kevin Garnett. Some may even say Charles Barkley. You got Dirk Nowitzki. If you go old school, you got guys like Bob Pettit. Somebody may even bring up a name like Elvin Hayes. You know what I mean? So there's a handful of other players that definitely are worthy candidates, but when we go through their careers and we evaluate what they were able to do, once again, in my opinion, other than longevity, they are not actually better players than Giannis. And in my opinion, even if you want to say it's too early, I do believe that Giannis is going to put in enough healthy all-NBA MVP level seasons to validate my point when it's all said and done even more. All right. But if we were to take a look at some of these players' careers, starting with a guy like Karl Malone, because he's a name that gets brought up a lot. When I've had my discussions about where Giannis should be on the all-time power forwards list, Karl Malone is a name that gets brought up first. Like, well, what about Karl Malone? Karl Malone is an all-time great NBA player. He's probably arguably the greatest player that never won a ring, based off what he was able to do year in and year out as an individual player. And he did win 2 MVP awards. And no, Karl Malone was not a big man that was a shot-blocking big man. But he did make about 4 or 5 All-NBA defensive teams in his career. He was not a slouch on D. Offensively, we know what he brings to the table. He scored over 36,000 points in his career. And to be honest with you, Giannis might never score that much, just due to the fact that he got off to a little bit of a later start in regards to when he started to reach an all-star level production on the court. But if we look at what Giannis has been able to accomplish thus far, at the end of the day, he's won a championship. He has 2 MVPs just like Karl. He's been so impactful on defense that he won a Defensive Player of the Year, and he's the 3rd player to do that in a season when he won the MVP. All right? Now, some people might try to respond and say, well, you can't even base everything off winning championships because, you know, Karl played in the Jordan era. Well, here's the thing. In the middle of the 90s, Jordan retired. He did not win a championship. Hakeem Olajuwon did. Now, unless you want to go that far and say, well, you know, Hakeem is your top 10, arguably top 10 all-time player, he's just better than Karl. And he's better than Giannis, too. You can argue that, but at the same time, you know, Karl Malone should have been able to get 1 championship, I feel like, in that time period, that 2-year stretch when Jordan was out the league, or at least almost 2-year stretch. And then not only that, even after 98, when Jordan retired again, you know, in that lockout year, Karl Malone won his 2nd MVP award. That season, the Jazz were supposed to win a championship, but he wasn't able to do it. That's when the greatest power forward of all time, that being Tim Duncan, came in and won his first championship. He did something in his 2nd year that Karl could not do. So that's why I say Karl Malone, to me, he put in a lot of time. But in all honesty, in the biggest of moments in his career, he did not get the job done like he was supposed to. Like, even against those Chicago teams, against the Bulls, we could talk about Michael Jordan all day. Had Karl Malone really put his foot down and played at the highest level he could have played at, I mean, I get it. He was matched up against Dennis Rodman, who's a very good defensive power forward himself. Of course, we know that. But even still, when you're an all-time great, you're supposed to take your game to another level no matter who's on you. in the biggest moments. And in those Bulls championship series, both times those series were winnable games. All right, there's no doubt about it that both times the Jazz could have pulled out a victory against the Bulls. They just didn't. And Karl Malone did not play at his absolute best. That's just a fact. So the only argument for him is just longevity. Giannis has already done something that Karl's never done. Offensively, it's close. Defensively, to me, Giannis gets the edge. And Giannis rose to the occasion in the biggest moment of his career in the NBA Finals. So that's that in regards to Karl Malone. Now, when it comes to Kevin Garnett, I can't lie. I do understand and I respect if somebody still wants to make an argument that he should be number 2, maybe over a Giannis. Because not only does he have the longevity, but he has a lot of the defensive accolades. Like, he put in a lot of time. He has about twice as many all-defensive teams as Giannis as well. So he was about equal on the defensive end as Giannis is right now. And he also won a Defensive Player of the Year, too. So that's something else to bring up. All right, so defensively, he was right there with Giannis. Offensively, it's close. He was a bit more skillful offensively. When it comes to just overall dominance, I might still lean towards Giannis. KG did win an MVP. And yes, by the way, the MVP season that KG had in 2004 is probably one of the most underrated MVP seasons, at least since the year 2000 started, the new millennium started. All right, that was a lower scoring era. And KG had a dominant season that year in 2004 for the Timberwolves. Very underrated season. Of course, Giannis, again, has 2 MVPs and also won a Defensive Player of the Year in the same year he won an MVP award. And to me, what separates them as well is the fact that when Giannis won his championship, as I stated already, he showed out. When KG won his championship, he played a very important role. Don't get it twisted. But he was not the sole driving force on that team. Like, he was not just the standout guy amongst his other teammates anywhere near to the degree Giannis Antetokounmpo was. You know, he didn't even win the MVP. Paul Pierce did, even though it was debatable. But even still, you know, so I can understand the KG won a little bit more. But in my personal opinion, even if you want to say not quite yet, you just got to keep seeing Giannis perform at a high level. That's cool. You know, once again, man, Giannis is not an injury-prone player, and I hope that it stays that way. If Giannis gives us about 5 or 6 more seasons where he's playing at a high level, even if he never wins again, he should be ranked ahead of both of these last 2 dudes that I mentioned. That's just my opinion. Now, as we go forward down the list, you know, we got Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki's another one that's put in a lot of time on the court. But Dirk Nowitzki is not better than Giannis. All right? He's just not. And I like Dirk. Dirk used to be one of my favorite players. You know, when it comes to being a pioneer for, you know, shooting big men, 3-point shooting big men, you know, that a lot of that starts with him. I give him a lot of credit for being a player that helped to revolutionize the game. But is he a more dominant player overall than Giannis? The answer is no, because Dirk can't play defense. All right? Dirk did win an MVP. He also won a championship. But when you compare those 2 players, I think anybody that really knows basketball that tries to compare Dirk and Giannis, like, once again, the only thing you can say is Dirk played longer. He is not better than Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care who does not like that. He is not better than him. And going down after that, I mean, like I said, old school, if you want to go old school and mention guys like Bob Pettit, I can hear you. Bob Pettit won multiple MVPs. He won a championship back in his day. Charles Barkley never won anything. So you can't really factor him in. You can't really even compare him to Giannis. So you see what starts to happen when we go through certain players' careers and we start comparing. You know, at the end of the day, we have to be on point when we evaluate players. We have to understand that when certain players are able to accomplish things that other players didn't, they deserve credit for that. You know, we can't just hold on to certain NBA rankings for eternity. You know, things change up. And Giannis, what he's done in the last 7 seasons, starting in 2016, 2017, how he's been able to rise each year and get better as a player, and what he's accomplished. No, he might never have the longevity as certain players, but we had to look at how good he was when he first became a good player. And we had to evaluate him all throughout his prime and look at what he was able to do during that time period. Some players get off the late starts. That's okay. But if you were able to do things that other players before you could not, and you bring things to the table that other players before you did not, then we had to give credit to that. We can't just disregard that. All right. So that's my take on Giannis Antetokounmpo and how I feel about where he should rank all time in regards to power forwards. But of course, I welcome other people's opinions. So whatever you guys think, leave your comments. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like for me. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed the video, not only can you like it, but go ahead and subscribe because we got more great videos coming just like this. But anyways, as I always say, all praise be to the Most High. Thank you again.